So I want to talk about diet in terms of being in shape. This video is inspired from a reel I was watching of someone that I know that owns a gym. She teaches circuit training. So I was watching her reel and thinking to myself, like, damn, she getting fat. And then I was just kind of asking myself, like, but how though? Because she's always working out. And it didn't take long at all for me to know the answer to that question. And it is diet. Now, I don't know her diet like personally, like I've never spoken to her about her diet, but I could tell her diet is fucked up just by looking at her, because she wasn't, like, when I met her, she wasn't that big. And she had a gym when I met her. She was just starting out when I met her. And now, which is, I don't know, maybe like a couple years later, she's been getting fat. Like, I was watching her reel and I could see the jelly rolls in her stomach, and, her arms are bigger. Just her entire body is showing weight gain. And yeah, it comes down to diet. But this will probably be different than what you're used to hearing, because it's not just as simple as calories. It's not just as simple as paying attention to the calories that you consume and making sure, like, if you want to lose weight, like, ultimately you have to use more calories than you consume. It's just not as cut and dry as it may have been at one point anymore, because food, man, which way do I go with this? Well, let's go this way and start by saying, one, most of what we consider food is not even food. Let's start there. And all you got to do is, read a label on, one of your favorite foods, and you'll discover that most of what's on a food label today, like, you can't even pronounce unless you're like a fucking doctor or something, a scientist. I don't even think you could pronounce a lot of this shit as a doctor. You'd have to be like a fucking scientist to pronounce a lot of these words, because they're all chemicals. And not only are they all chemicals, they're drugs too. So if we start there and just realize that we're not even eating food, we're eating a bunch of drugs and chemicals, then that will make it all make a lot more sense as to why someone can work out every day and still get fat. Excuse me. And then to piggyback on that, what are these chemicals? What are these drugs? You gotta understand that, all of these so-called food additives, these chemicals and these drugs, and I know, me calling calling it some of these chemicals drugs may seem extreme and far-fetched and unrealistic, but I mean, truth is the truth. I mean, it's really easy to prove. And, you know, I will, if you stick around. But you gotta understand, okay, so food is a for-profit industry. There was a time where we used to feed ourselves. You know, we used to grow our own food and we would feed our own families. We would have our own farms, you know, and you know, that was the right way to do it. But we've had I don't know, like, in the name of convenience, you know, people have seen opportunities to make our lives more convenient by making our food for us. And, you know, many of us were just born into this way of life, you know, and this is all we know. But anytime money is involved, again, food is a for-profit business. They're not producing food for us because they love us and want us to be healthy. They're producing food for us because they seen an opportunity to get rich, right? And so at the root of it all is the desire to get rich, make money. And so when that's the desire, corruption is absolutely going to follow. And so, you know, these food manufacturers have taken a tremendous burden upon themselves to supply food for an entire population of people. There's almost 8 billion people in the world today. Like, how do you feed that many fucking people? So, you know, you have to resort to unnatural means, you know, and there's so many directions I could go with this, but I'm just going to stick to food additives, right? So one of the ways these food manufacturers sell more foods is by adding chemicals, drugs to their product that make their product last on the shelves longer. It makes you addicted. They have created chemicals or food additives, drugs that trigger what I call the pleasure centers in your brain. You know, like I don't know if you're familiar with these, but and I'm not that familiar. I know of dopamine. Dopamine is one. Serotonin is one. Oxytocin, I believe, is how you say that, is one, and endorphins is one. But through research and spending millions of dollars on researching different chemicals and what'll happen if I put this chemical with this chemical, and if I mix this with this and this and feed it to people, how would they respond? And so through research, they've learned how to tap in to these pleasure centers in the brain. And so, is this not what drugs do? Like, no matter what the drug is, if it's crack, if it's meth, if it's heroin, if it's cocaine, no matter what the drug is this not what they all do? They all do the same shit. They all trigger And it might be, some other pleasure centers in the brain, but they all trigger your dopamine, your serotonin, your oxytocin, and endorphins. They all do the same shit to different degrees, right? And so, they put this shit in foods, in the foods that we eat. Now, just real quick, and I know this is not an easy pill to swallow, but if you can't find it in nature, then it's not natural, and it was never intended to be food. It's plain and simple. And so they start with an unnatural product. They add a bunch of chemicals and drugs and sweeteners, like artificial sweeteners, to make it taste delicious, and dyes and all this shit, and food additives and chemical. And this is what we're eating. And it's really chemical warfare. Like, when you think about it, I mean, how is it not? Because look at the results of us eating such things. Millions of people are dying every year. All disease is diet related. I made a video about that. I made a couple videos about that. Check them out. But all disease is diet related. Prove me wrong. And by diet, I'm referring to anything that you allow to get inside of you. Whether it's through your mouth, through your skin, through your nose, or even through your ears. So, I mean, just look at the number of casualties. There are more people dying per year from food poisoning than any other cause in the world. From the chemicals and the drugs that are put in food. In addition to the millions of lives these unnatural products are claiming every year, there's millions more suffering. They're living with diseases that they've been told by a for-profit industry that they can't be cured of. And so they're living with these diseases and this for-profit industry, the real drug dealers of society, the pharmaceutical industry, and the medical industry, what I call the sick care industry. I got a video on here about the sick care industry. Check that out. But through these industries, they put you on drugs and they profit off of you for the rest of your life. Because they don't help you heal. They just help you manage the symptoms. And, people's symptoms are managed to different degrees. Some are still suffering, but not as less. Food does not make you sick. As simple as that. Sickness and disease are not natural. As simple as that. And so, since sickness and disease are unnatural, you can only become sick or diseased through unnatural means. And this means, one of the major means is the unnatural things that are sitting on grocery store shelves all across the world that have been deceptively labeled as food. And so, the whole aim, again, it's all about how much you can sell. It's all about profits for these industries. And so you have a company that manufactures food additives that'll go to a food producer and say, hey, I can make your product last longer. I can make it taste better. I can make more people buy it. And so then a partnership is formed. They don't give a fuck about your health. They just want you to buy the product. And they understand what will make you buy the product. It has to taste delicious. Because we don't, in general, we don't seem to give a fuck what's in it. All we really care about is how it tastes. And that's our fault. Like, you can't blame, we can't blame nobody for that. That's our fault. And so there's companies that take advantage of that. They take advantage of our ignorance. So much so that they even put what's in the product on the product. But they have that much confidence that we won't read it. That's very interesting. So that's the game, they've developed chemicals, food additives, drugs that when you eat, you become addicted. They created chemicals, additives, and drugs that they turn off your brain signal, letting you know when you're full. Or I won't say turn off, but it delays. This makes you overeat because you're eating, and then when your brain would normally say, okay, I'm full, that's enough, that signal has been delayed so you can eat more. And they've developed chemicals and drugs that, as I mentioned earlier, they trigger these pleasure chemicals within your brain. So when you eat, you feel like a heightened sense of pleasure. Like eating really makes you happy. When I used to, eat the bullshit, I remember I would run to food a lot. This is why they call it comfort food. But I would run to food a lot, for comfort, to make me feel better. If I had a rough day, if I was stressed out, if I was depressed, I would run to food. And I had certain combinations of foods that, that I would put together and eat, and it just made all my problems go away, literally. Food ain't supposed to do that. Food is not supposed to do that. Drugs do that. Is this not the same thing that drugs do? The only difference is, if, to the degree of your suffering, right? Food may not be enough. Like, depending on how much your suffering is or how fucked up your day was, food may not be enough. You might need something stronger, But food reacts the same way as drugs do. And it's not the food, it's the chemicals, it's the additives, it's the drugs that they put in these artificial products, these unnatural products. And like being on the other side of the fence, like I could like clearly see the difference, because there's a lot of fruit. I've only been eating fruit for I don't know how long it's been. But I've been living a frugivore lifestyle for a while. And if you haven't seen my video, human beings are frugivores, I believe it's titled. You can check that out. But just real quick, a frugivore, if you don't know, human beings are frugivores, and a frugivore diet is a diet that consists mainly of fruit. Your primary food source is fruit. And you could also incorporate nuts, like raw nuts. Everything you eat is in its natural state. So, you can include raw nuts, raw seeds in that, or even raw vegetables if you like raw vegetables. But that's a frugivore diet. And so I've been living, as a frugivore, which I am, for a little while now. And but recently, I've just been on all fruit. I've stopped eating nuts and stopped eating seeds. For now, anyway. I don't know if I'll go back to them or not. But that's what food is. Again, if you can't find it in nature, then it's not food. Human beings are the only species that has, grocery stores and all these different concoctions, all these different creations, But yeah, so I forgot what I was saying before that. And I feel like I was going somewhere good though. But yeah. So this is why a person can work out like every day and still get fat. Because if you don't get your diet together, then it's impossible to battle against what they're putting out. Like I remember when I started my journey to get in better health, better shape, better condition, I don't know how overweight I was, but I dropped about 70 pounds. And on that journey, I just remember one day being on a stair climber and I'm busting my ass on this thing. Like I'm sweating like a motherfucker and I'm tired. I'm winded. I'm fucking exhausted. Fucking heart rate is almost at 200 and I'm pushing. Like I'm pushing. There's nothing lazy about my workout. Like I'm going all out on this fucking stair climber. And then I get to the end and I look at how many calories I burnt and I don't remember like what that number was. But I remember thinking, excuse me, all that fucking work I just did is the equivalent of burning off one fucking Snickers bar. And I was mad as fuck about that. It's like all this work, and this only amounts to burning off one Snicker. Like, and I'm thinking about like how much I eat in a day. I'm like, this is bullshit. Like, there's no way I will ever get rid of this weight without changing my diet. I mean, they pack so many calories into the things that we eat. And again, we're able to eat all these extra calories because they've learned how to delay the signal that our brain gives us to let us know when we're full. They've learned how to delay that shit. So we keep eating when we should have stopped eating a long time ago. Because we've, like, again, through these chemicals, they, one, like just the addiction that they cause, and two, they make us think we still hungry when we're not. And this is all done so they could sell more product. They don't give a fuck about us, our health, or none of that shit. So, just something to, I don't know. For me, it was something to think about. It might not be nothing to think about for you. Like, you might not give a fuck about none of this shit. But, you know, that would be typical of an addict. Because I see people time and time again whose health is being destroyed by their unnatural eating habits. And they ain't gonna stop eating. Like, shit, I took my mom, like my mom was having issues. And so I took her to an herbalist. And he told her what she needed to stop eating. And she looked like honest, like she looked like she was about to cry. And she couldn't do it. She wasn't interested in giving up what he said she would have to give up. Like, she would literally rather deal with the issues she was having. And she was happier that way. And, you know, I'm not going to try to force her to do anything. Like, if you're happy, hey, be happy. You know. But I just say that to say, like, this is how strong the addiction is. Like, is it not the same? Like with a heroin addict or a crack addict or meth addict or whatever? Is it not the same? Like when their fucking teeth are rotting and falling out, they still keep getting high off of their drug of choice. They fucking in and out of jail. They fucking went homeless and lost their job. But they still getting, like, they still get high. Like, it don't matter. Like, the drug makes them feel so good. Like the what do you call it? The casualty damage or whatever. I don't know if that's the right word or term. But just the losing the job and losing the house and, you know, your fucking family abandoning you and your health going to shit. None of that matters. All that matters is that drug. How is it any different, you know, with people that are eating these unnatural foods? I don't see a difference. And again, more people are dying from eating these unnatural foods than those that are dying from meth, crack, heroin, cocaine, alcohol, cigarettes combined. Whatever other drug you want to throw in there. So I just find this all very interesting. You know, it's really interesting. It's interesting that this is the type of world that we live in. It's just interesting. So I'm gonna wrap that up here. Let me know what you think.